It's time for the starts and sits for Week 9 Fantasy Football here, brought to you by Climb the Pocket. Here's our success rate with our starts and sits through Week 8, and we will continue to be monitoring our hits and misses throughout the season. Now, let's get into the starts at quarterback. Our must-start quarterbacks for Week 9 are Aaron Rodgers, Joe Burrow, Derek Carr, Tua Tagovailoa, Dak Prescott. And our under-the-radar quarterback for Week 9 is Carson Wentz versus the New York Jets. Carson Wentz is continuing to roll out very serviceable fantasy performances at the quarterback position, scoring 17-plus points in all but one of his games this season. Until last week, he had only thrown one interception, although the public likes to think he has at least won a game, which just is not the case. Wentz is starting to gain a really nice rapport with Michael Pittman and is overall getting used to this offensive game plan and team identity. Wentz is trending up. Start him against the Jets. Our must-sit quarterbacks for Week 9 are Trevor Lawrence, Matt Ryan, Ryan Tannehill, Baker Mayfield, Justin Fields. And our beware the bust quarterback for Week 9 is Jimmy Garoppolo versus Arizona. Garoppolo was able to get it done in Week 8 against the Bears, finishing as a QB1, but Chicago's defense is trending down. They practically handed that game to the Niners. That was just the second time Jimmy G passed for 300 yards this season, and he had those two rushing touchdowns that really saved his day from being mediocre. Arizona has been a bottom 5 matchup for fantasy quarterbacks this season, and Jimmy G's job is still on the line with Trey Lance breathing down his neck. Find another option this week. Now on to the running back position. Our must-start running backs for Week 9 are Elijah Mitchell, Darrell Henderson, Melvin Gordon, Damian Harris, Boston Scott. And our under-the-radar running back for Week 9 is KHALIL Herbert at Pittsburgh. Let's get the negatives out of the way. Herbert faces Pittsburgh this week, and they are a bottom 10 matchup for fantasy running backs, only surrendering 14.9 points per game to the position. The positives are Herbert is on a 4-game streak of at least 70 rushing yards in 18-plus attempts. He's clearly the guy the Bears want to run their offense through until Montgomery gets back on the field, and they are going to need to establish the run against Pittsburgh to have any chance in this game. If he could fall into the end zone this week, he could provide a safe floor for your team. Our must-sit running backs for Week 9 are Dearness Johnson, Mike Davis, Kenneth Gainwell, Philip Lindsay, Damian Williams. And our beware the bust running back for Week 9 is Tony Pollard versus Denver. It was just a few weeks ago when people were calling for Pollard to take Zeke Elliott's job, but the talks on the topic have slowly been washed away. Pollard has gone 4 out of his last 5 games with less than 7 fantasy points. Although his efficiency is there as a runner when he's on the field, you're really banking on a touchdown to make him a startable asset. And with Dak back on the field this week, look for Zeke and the pass catchers to get rolling again. Pollard is merely a high-quality handcuff going forward. Now on to the wide receiver position. Our must-start wide receivers for Week 9 are Deontay Johnson, Mike Williams, Kadarius Toney, Jalen Waddle, Michael Pittman. And our under-the-radar wide receiver for Week 9 is DeVante Parker versus Houston. How about a little DeVante Parker, a player that I'm sure has burned a few of you a time or two over the past few years, was back on the field in Week 8 after a 3-game absence. He saw a whopping 11 targets from Tua and reeled in 8 for 85. He gets Houston this week, who is currently giving up the 10th most points to the receivers this season. Get this guy in your lineup, as Tua and him may be building something great. Our must-sit wide receivers for Week 9 are Julio Jones, Tyler Boyd, Allen Robinson, Laviska Shenault, Jerry Jeudy. And our beware the bust receiver for Week 9 is Marvin Jones versus Buffalo. Have you ever ridden a roller coaster of fantasy point production like you get to with Marvin Jones? One week you start him, nothing. Next week you sit him, boom, something. Most weeks is a tough call to throw him in your lineup, but this week it should not be too hard. The Jags get to take on the Bills, who are currently the worst matchup for wide receivers in 2021, only giving up 13.8 points per game to the position. That's almost half of the league average. Sit him with ease this week. Now on to the tight end position. Our must-start tight ends for Week 9 are Dalton Schultz, Dallas Goedert, Mike Gesicki, Tyler Higbee, Zach Ertz. And our under-the-radar tight end for Week 9 is Albert O at Dallas. Hey, how about some Albert O? Seems like we saw a lot of him this past week, but it was really only 3 catches on 3 targets for 34 yards. A very typical tight end stat line. It was a season high for him in yards, though. Breaking news is, Noah Fant was just placed on the COVID injured reserve list after testing positive. Very likely will miss this week's contest against the Cowboys. The Broncos are going to need pass catchers to step up to keep up with Dallas this week, and although he is far from a lock, he's a decent streaming option this week. Our must-sit tight ends for Week 9 are Dan Arnold, Pat Freiermuth, Jonnu Smith, Austin Hooper, CJ Uzomah, and our Beware the Bust tight end for Week 9 is Kyle Pitts at New Orleans. I know, you're not sitting Kyle Pitts. You invested too much draft capital, and he's been pretty good as of late for fantasy. But the Falcons travel to New Orleans this week to take on the Saints in Week 9, and they are a bottom 3 matchup for fantasy tight ends. They just lost their leader in Jameis Winston, and this defense is going to have to step up even more. I'm projecting Matt Ryan to have a poor game, and at Ryan's expense, Pitts may have a disappointing week as well. Temper your expectations for Pitts this week. Now on to defensive special teams. Our must-start defenses for Week 9 are Buffalo Bills, New Orleans Saints, Indianapolis Colts, Dallas Cowboys, Pittsburgh Steelers. And our must-sit defenses for Week 9 are Tennessee Titans, Philadelphia Eagles, New York Giants, Kansas City Chiefs, Green Bay Packers. Thanks again for joining us on another edition of Stardom Situm here on the Climb the Pocket YouTube channel. If you enjoyed today's video, show some love and like the video and consider subscribing to never miss another one. Let's continue to make educated decisions and go get a W in Week 9.